Cheers! Fly, eat, repeat, fabulous folks.
Welcome to the premiere episode of Fly, Eat, Repeat, the show where we serve up juicy, tasty info and spill the beans on our secret sauces.
It's not a cooking show, it's an exploration of human cooking history. Imagine, my dear, as you immerse yourself in our episodes of Fly, Eat, Repeat. Hunger strikes your stomach, forcing you to reach for your mobile phone and search your delivery app. Suddenly, you feel confused. The problem gets bigger. Which app? Uber Eats, DoorDash, or Grubhub? Which cuisine, restaurant, and which items? Burger, pizza, or tacos? In this moment, you remember your great-grandfather chasing rabbits in the savannah. If he saw you now ordering delivery, how would he feel? Imagine, dear your great-grandfather, stepping into your kitchen. Witness the refrigerator, the defender of freshness, preserving your food from spoiling, the icy guardian that keeps water cold to quench your thirst in summer. And there stands your stove that boils food to purify it from microbes that could kill him, with its sweet flame rendering it tender and juicy for easy consumption and digestion. My dear, not only do you have these marvels in your kitchen, but you also have restaurants, saving you the trouble of cooking. Lazy generations.
My dear American citizen, with over 750,000 restaurants at your fingertips, the National Restaurant Association reveals a mind-blowing $1 trillion in food service industry sales. A trillion, that's 1,000 billion, and a billion, well, it's just 1,000 million. Dear, welcome to the era of cloud kitchens, which is an alternative to a restaurant kitchen, although this restaurant is an alternative to your kitchen. Enter the restaurant POS system, a digital maestro software that guides restaurants through the symphony of their business.
We've evolved from chasing rabbits to managing restaurants with the touch of a button.
With the advancement of technology and civilization, our stomachs have become larger, more complex, and need systems to operate them. Forget hunting, we manufacture meat in labs. All of these waves began with the simple idea of cooking. Without cooking, there is no civilization. And without civilization, there would be no fly, eat, repeat. Fly, eat, repeat. Fly, eat, repeat. "40,000 years ago, planet Earth, my dear, was a challenging and desolate place, especially for your ancient human grandfather who was tired, miserable, and could not find comforts as you did. He and his gang group of ancient humans decided to emigrate from Africa to Europe. Not only that, my dear, the weather was difficult. After people migrated long ago and settled in Europe, they faced new challenges that they did not know about, such as the strange disease that appeared and particularly affected children. Their bones were not solid and had deformities which caused many children to die at a young age. Whoever lived completed his entire life with these deformities. This disease, my dear, is called rickets in children, or osteomalacia in adults. Some historical studies say that this disease was widespread at the time of the Roman Empire, and rickets affected one Roman child out of every 20. 5%, my dear. Most likely this disease existed before that as well. Doctors at that time were powerless in the face of the disease because they did not know its cause at all. Scientific evidence of its causes did not appear before 1921, when a group of doctors conducted experiments in Vienna on some children suffering from rickets, and, very strangely, their condition improved after they were allowed to play regularly on the balcony. Don't worry, madam. Your kid will take this medicine and play on the balcony for 2 weeks after eating. At that time, my dear, we realized the importance of sunlight in healthy bone development. Today we have a deeper knowledge about it. When exposed to UV rays, ultraviolet rays, from the sun, cholesterol molecules under the skin activate and turn into vitamin D. This vitamin, my dear, is necessary for the body to absorb calcium, the calcium that you need for your bones to be good and strong. If you look, my beautiful dear, at the map, you will discover that the lands located north of the 42 latitude are not exposed to enough sunlight in the summer. Therefore, people who live there do not have the amount of vitamin D that the body needs, and thus rickets have spread among them like an epidemic. Of course, you think that as you look up to the north, you will find that the rates of rickets are increasing more and more among people. For example, people who live in Sweden where nights can reach 18 hours a day frighteningly suffer from the disease. However, this is not true at all because people who lived in the Scandinavian regions, they were among the healthiest people in all of Europe, as you watched in the Vikings series.
In 793, Vikings started occupying the entire planet. Initially, they occupied Denmark, then Norway and Sweden.
They took parts of England, Scotland, and Ireland, and as we chill out, let's besiege Paris. Their ships penetrated the coasts of Western Europe, then the Strait of Gibraltar towards the Mediterranean Sea.
The main course was Italy, Spain, Morocco, and Palestine.
Bored of the salty sea, they traveled through the Russian rivers and waterways of the Black Sea.
And let's take the Caspian Sea and Baghdad as a side dish.
In Asia, my dear, they used to meet the caravans coming from China to exchange ivory and fur with spices and silver. On the other side, they sailed the entire North Atlantic Ocean and discovered the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and Greenland. As a dessert, parts of Canada and North America. They arrived there, my dear, 500 years before Columbus.
They were so rigid that the Vikings did not leave a place in the world without occupying it.
I don't think, my dear, that I need to tell you much about the strength of Viking fighters, because they are an example of intensity and boldness. So, the question is, how? A disease that afflicts all of Europe due to lack of sun is called rickets. People's bones are weak, however. People who lived in the far north and occupied 3/4 of the world had such strength, the sun shining 4 or 5 hours before night would fall.
How were they not suffering from this disease?
Look, my dear, even though the Scandinavian countries are cursed with a severe lack of sunlight, their cure was literally around them.
Where? In the sea? It is cod. Codfish was not just a food source for them from the sea that they mainly relied on.
This fish was also a rich source of vitamin D. Vitamin D, my dear, is present in this fish in abundance in its fatty meat, especially in its liver. Just one meal of cod with cheese and eggs can give you enough vitamin D for a month, and thus they will not have problems due to the absence of the sun. We may not be exaggerating if we say that cod is the main reason we know about the Vikings today. Without cod, they were not this powerful in Europe, and perhaps one of the practices they passed on to the next generations was their extraction and drinking of cod liver oil, which is very rich in vitamin D. From the early Middle Ages, these fish were necessary for the Vikings, especially on their travels across the ocean. They would catch these fish, hang and expose them to the cold winds of the North Sea until they were dried. They added a lot of salt so that they became salted fish that could be preserved from spoiling, and large quantities of them could be transported on ships very easily. Especially on ships that go on long cruises in the Atlantic Ocean. When you get hungry while on the ship, you break the dried fish and eat it like a biscuit, and often its taste is not sweet, but it is a rich source of energy and vitamins and is cheap at the same time. The nutritional value of this fish is not only that it is rich in vitamin D, but also the percentage of protein in one fish after it is dried can reach 80%. My dear, food may seem like something very far from the scales of power, but it is extremely important, and if you eat healthy, you can lead the world, and occupy Denmark, Sweden, Norway, a little of England, a little of France, and European coasts, invade Iraq and sail away in Russian lakes, the Dead Sea, and the Caspian Sea. For the Vikings, cod was an ideal solution for the vitamin. Drying, salting, and extracting fish liver oil enabled them to be among the strongest people in the region for a very long time.
However, the situation in the rest of Europe was disastrous.
Fly. Eat. Repeat. Fly. Eat. Repeat. Fly. Eat. Repeat.
In the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, in Europe, there was almost nothing that was eaten and not adulterated. My dear, sugar and any foodstuffs were mixed with sand, dirt, and gypsum to sell them at a cheaper price or keep the same price to profit more. The butter was full of lard and pork fat. Are you nervous? May I bring you a cup of tea? Well, even tea wasn't immune, often mixed with sawdust, sand, and sheep dung. Vinegar, my dear, was mixed with sulfuric acid. Milk was supplemented with chalk. Toxic compounds of arsenic and copper were added to the vegetables to keep their color green. Honestly, my dear, cherry in England wasn't adulterated, but sellers used to lick it with their tongues to make it shine. Choose whatever you like to eat, with arsenic, spitting, chalk, or wait for the sheep to prepare your tea. Bon appetit. Dear, we are talking about non-essential goods, but essential goods such as bread or meat were different. Bread in particular was extremely important to the English during the 19th century. For many people, bread was not just a side dish. No, it was the main course. According to historian Christian Peterson, approximately 65 to 80% of English households' food expenditure was on bread. This, my dear, was not a love of bread as much as it was due to poor families and difficult economic conditions. In his book, The Nature of Bread Honestly and Dishonestly Made, Dr. James Manning talks about the bread industry. He says that bakers used to add chalk, white lead, slaked lime, and bone powder to the flour before baking it. In 1862, the English Parliament inspected several bakeries and found many bakeries full of spider webs and various insects along the walls and surfaces on which they kneaded and baked.
Well, that's just extra protein, right?
Oh no.
As for meat, it was a completely different market. The largest meat market in London was called London Smithfield Market, sometimes it was called Cag-Mag. My dear, this is a slang term that means cheap nonsense. This market was known for its strong smell of rotting meat spreading in the market, to the point that an eyewitness for a parliamentary investigation in 1828 said that he saw the carcass of a very rotten cow with yellow slime falling from it. Of course, my dear, these are extremely cruel, brutal, filthy, and decadent, but I would be grateful if you would not be harsh on these societies. Keep in mind that during this period there was no way to preserve food. The story, my dear, began in 1806 with an American businessman in Boston called Frederick Tudor. In a moment of clarity with himself, he discovered that the ice of Wenham Lake renews itself without any cost, it's clean, renewable, and its quantity is unlimited.
So, let's create a company that sells this product.
My dear, as an idea, the project seems to be very profitable. There are just some minor drawbacks. First, there was no infrastructure to produce and store ice because there was originally no market for ice. You need to find a way to cut and distribute the ice over a wide range. And you need to build warehouses, secure the rights of ice merchants, and have a chain of agents who ship the ice. Above all of that, you need to create demand for ice, especially in places where ice is rare or does not exist at all. Because the biggest risk in it is that you are dealing with a product that if you leave it for half an hour in the sun,
Ice will disappear. It will dissolve and turn into water with no value.
However, my dear, after years of developing, your Uncle Frederick discovered that if you insulate the ice well and use sawdust, which has no value except in adulterated tea. However, he discovered that sawdust is an excellent thermal insulator that makes us able to preserve the ice. It does not melt, and it stays with you for a surprisingly long time.
So later Frederick Tudor earned the famous moniker, the Ice King.
Ice made us able to see things that we as humans could never imagine. You eat bread made from wheat grown in Kansas, Japanese Wagyu, Australian lamb, Swiss chocolate, and other foodstuffs all over the world. Materials that began to appear on our dining table are thousands of miles away from their original home.
Thanks, sawdust. Thanks, ice.
Fly. Eat. Repeat. Fly. Eat. Repeat.
You can order a lobster thermidor from the most luxurious restaurants in Paris and you get it hot on a plane.
The question, dear, what's next in the food industry?
If we think, dear, about meat, for example, we produce and consume huge quantities of it. More than 365 million tons per year.
Meaning 1 million tons every day.
Not only that, the rates of individual consumption of meat in countries like America, Australia, and Hong Kong can reach about 120 kg per year is strongly likely to increase in the coming years. Other than developing countries, whose population is increasingly consuming meat. So, the demand for meat will never decrease if it does not increase.
In 2021,
a study published in The Guardian found that meat accounts for nearly 60% of all greenhouse gases from food production, which represents as a whole contributes to a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. Many people think that we need to reduce meat consumption in our food, but of course, this is difficult, as we have been eating meat for thousands of years.
If I ask you to leave your steak plate because the planet is heating up, you may reply, "F*** your planet."
Dear, I am on your side, and I love meat as much as you do.
But what if there was a way to eat it without slaughtering a single animal?
There is a controversial technology that many people believe may be the solution to saving our planet.
Lab-grown meats.
Imagine, my dear, evolving from restaurants and cloud kitchens to the laboratory.
We will make our food in the lab.
These laboratories use biotechnology practices to grow meat using stem cells. Stem cells are a special type of cells that can transform into almost any type of cell in the body, such as
skin cells, muscle cells, and liver cells.
To get these stem cells, we go to the source of the meat you want, for example, the cow. We take a sample of its tissue without killing or harming it. After that, we extract their stem cells in the laboratory and put them in a device called a bioreactor. A bioreactor is a device or system that provides an optimal and controlled environment for biological and chemical reactions. They are used to cultivate animal cells in a nutrient-rich environment, allowing them to grow and multiply. Bioreactors are commonly cylindrical vessels, made of stainless steel. To transform beef stem cells, you need them to transform into muscle or fat cells. This is done by adding nutrients,
amino acids, growth hormones,
and a special serum called FBS. All of these components stimulate the cell to begin to multiply and increase in number. Over time, a single stem cell can turn into 1 trillion muscle cells.
Imagine the amount of steak, burgers, and nuggets that can come from a single stem cell.
So, what's the problem? Keep your love for meat, solve global warming, and animal rights issues, and we are all happy. Why don't we see this new meat in our lives?
There is a fundamental problem.
The problem, my dear, is that the animal-free meat is not 100% animal-free. Do you still remember this FBS serum, which is an abbreviation for fetal bovine serum? It is extracted from the fetuses of slaughtered cows. What happens is that if there is a pregnant cow, it will be slaughtered, and the fetus is extracted from it, and this FBS serum is drawn from its blood. Of course, this may be a little ugly, but until now, unfortunately, this is the only way to produce this serum. You ask me, why is the serum necessary? The serum is added to the stem cells in the bioreactor, as we said, and it prevents the stem cells from killing themselves.
Can they kill themselves?
Yes. Stem cells have a mechanism that prevents them from growing and multiplying in the wrong places, so that when they remain in the body, they grow in the right place. But if you bring them outside and ask them to grow,
they will not grow.
This is good, because it keeps us as humans or animals from growing properly. Of course, my dear, you want to let the cells grow in the bioreactor, and this is not their characteristic of living in this industrial environment. Therefore, you need to prevent the cells from committing suicide in the bioreactor, and the only thing capable of this is the FBS. In a simple calculation, my dear, you need 50 liters of this FBS serum. How long does the cow fetus come out? Between 150 to 550 milliliters.
You are a serial killer, because you need between 90 and 333 cow fetuses to make a burger sandwich.
Oh no.
You eat my neck like Walking Dead to make an easier burger.
The truth is, until we find an industrial or vegetarian alternative to FBS, lab-grown meat will remain completely useless. It is not easy to replace it, because it contains approximately 1,800 different proteins, and more than 4,000 other substances that are important for its function. Tell me, I have an idea. We are trying to manufacture these proteins in a laboratory. Unfortunately, it is very, very expensive. Transferrin protein can cost up to $260 per gram. Another substance in FBS serum called TGF-beta can cost several $millions per gram. This excludes, of course, the cost of the laboratory and the huge equipment that needs sterilization at very high levels, because if any virus or bacteria is transmitted, it will spoil this entire quantity. This is not, of course, the biggest challenge, which is that this meat tastes the same as regular meat, if not better, because the taste of juicy, tender meat that melts in your mouth is the result of thousands of proteins, fats, and other compounds in the meat. Despite all these huge challenges, many people believe that there is hope that we can overcome all of this. For example, you have the proteins and vital materials required in the FBS serum that can be produced by genetically modified bacterial cells or yeasts, just as we produce synthetic insulin, thus reducing the cost price significantly. Like any technology, you know that it will be very expensive in the beginning, and over time its price will come down unless Apple gets involved. Lab-grown meat could become a reality that we will live and eat during the next 5 years. In 2013, the world's first lab-grown burger was introduced. At that time, the burger cost $330,000 to create. Today it costs $10, and in 2030 it's predicted to be less than $1. And in the grand finale, my sage advice: eat more healthy food. Sure, fast food is tasty, but let's not overdo it. And hey,
Fly, eat, repeat, fabulous folks.
watch the previous episodes, keep an eye out for the upcoming ones, check out the sources below, hit that subscribe button, and always remember your grandma's wisdom: there's nothing better than eating at home. Oh, look, my order's here. It's KFC.
Would you like an episode about it?